Parshat Tetzaveh, 5785, that's the year. We are going to entitle this little chat, Particulars of Rapture or Purpose of Pageantry. I take the title of this particular piece from the introduction to her book of commentary on Shemot by Aviva Zornberg. She titles this commentary, this collection of commentaries, The Particulars of Rapture. And she explains that sometimes the words of Torah alone and the experience they describe are just too bright, like looking straight into the sun, which can be a blinding experience. How is one to experience the going out of Mitzrayim, the receiving of the law at Har Sinai, experience all the sounds and striking scenes of the experience, and then learn about the beauty of the Mishkan and its elements without getting caught up in the particulars of rapture? For whatever it may be worth, I agree with her, as she opines that we need help in not getting so caught up in these particulars so as to lose our grounding, forget our human boundaries, and continue the journey on which we are intended to go. Somehow we are to hold on to our reality as human beings while engaging with the hope and aspirations of the text that we hold. She suggests that this is the rabbinic purpose in aiding us as we absorb the majesty of all that occurs, and often points to Midrash as helping us in attaining this goal. Zornberg states that the blurring of boundaries between revelation and interpretation is fundamental and needed for achieving a level of reasonable understanding. Through this weaving together of the various elements of what happens, one attains a deeper comprehension of what is truly going on, what she calls, as I've quoted many times, underneath and behind the words. As an example, let us consider the instructions of Moshe regarding the making of the vestments for his brother Aharon the priest, who will then be the main facilitator as high priest of the religious aspects and initiatives of the Bnei Israel. She entitles the chapter that addresses this as follows: Fraternal Ideal or Narrative of Anger. Immediately after the instructions about the kindling of the lamp with clear olive oil, we read in Parak 28, Ve'ata hakrav elecha et Aharon achicha ve'et banav ito, mitoch b'nei Yisrael l'kahanot li, Aharon, Nadav, Avihu, Elazar, ve'itamar b'nei Aharon. You must draw your brother Aharon to you from amongst the Israelites, together with his sons, to minister to me, God. Aaron with him, Nadav, Avihu, Eleazar, Itamar, the sons of Aharon. And Rashi claims that this is right after all of the hard work of the tabernacle. Moshe has supervised this place of sanctity, and now, he is being asked to invest the office of supervision of all that happens in that place in another, his brother Aharon. The text continues, V'asita bigdei kodesh la'Aharon achicha lichvod ulitiferet. You must make sacred vestments for your brother Aharon, for dignity and splendor. You must speak to everyone who is wise of heart, and we've seen this notion before, Chachmei Lev. We're going to continue to see it throughout these 5 Parashot, who is wise of heart, with whom I've invested a spirit of wisdom, and they must make Aharon's vestments to consecrate him to minister to me. To consecrate him to minister to me, l'kadsho l'kaonali. Here it means that Moshe is facilitating this investiture into the priesthood for his brother. So we must ask, would Moshe have wanted this most precious set of tasks for himself after all of the hard work that he's done? Wouldn't it be natural for him to take on such an office after facilitating all the details and creating the stage for such? After supervising and facilitating, if you will, all of the particulars of rapture. The text continues. These are the vestments, the breastplate, the ephod, the robe, the tunic, turban, a sash. And it repeats, V'asu bigdei kodesh la'Aharon achicha u'levanav l'kahanot li. And you will make them for Aharon your brother, and his children to minister to me. Now, in these talks, I have focused in previous years, and you can find some of those talks on my YouTube channel, about how Moshe must have felt, the disappointment of it all. After all, as Moshe was the closest to God, both by the word of Torah and our understanding of that word and his role, why would he now be closed out of facilitating the most powerful experiences that would bring the people and God together? Further, why would he be potentially diminished by having to do and facilitate all of this work in order to confer this honor, dignity, and splendor to his brother Aharon? Is this indicative, according to Aviva Zornberg's title for her commentary for this chapter, a fraternal ideal? In other words, being so selfless and being happy for your sibling? Or is it a narrative of anger? Now that it is clear that Aharon and his sons will be the ones who directly connect with Hashem on this elevated level, we are left to imagine how Moshe must have felt. Zornberg focuses on the wording here of the very first pasuk of our Parsha and hints at this transition. We go back to the beginning, before the text that I just read, Va'ata Tetzaveh, from which the Parsha gets its name, Et b'nei Yisrael v'yikchu elecha shemen zayit zach katit l'ma'or la'alot ner tamid. God says to Moshe, and Moshe's name, by the way, does not appear here at all. You will later command the Israelites to bring you clear olive oil, crushed for the luminary, to kindle the light regularly. We have seen this dynamic growing for some time now in our narrative. The notion that Moshe must now, in clear increments, hand off roles to others. He is not to do everything himself. We learned this a while back in Parshat Yitro. But rather to stand back while agency and initiative is meted out to individuals, to groups, and yes, to his brother as instructed. Here is the teacher, Moshe Rabbeinu, who is to understand that his role is not to do everything for everyone, but to enable others, not to be the center of all that happens with dependency of the entirety of all Bnei Yisrael to be centered on him, but rather to stand off while others take on more responsibility. This was not the plan, and this is not the goal, to have everything centered on one person. Herein lies a most important principle of the Jewish notion of leadership, one that Moshe Rabbeinu may not easily and seamlessly attain. As Zornberg explains, the complexity of Moshe's relationship to greatness is thus indicated at the foundational moment of the burning bush. His famed humility is not necessarily a lack of aspiration or of conscious genius. He is attuned to the two possible modalities of greatness, priestly and kingly, sacred and political. But God inhibits him. Al takriv, don't come closer, and later confronts him with the shock of the ata hikriv, and now bring your brother close. In other words, Moshe is held back, and now he has to bring Aharon to the foreground, initiating him into the priestly role that God had denied Moshe from the beginning. As further details are given, we see a clear expression of pageantry. For example, you will make 2 braided chains of pure gold, which will be affixed at the upper edge of the breastplate. Ushtei shorsharot zahav tahor, pure gold. And fasten these chains to the gold settings. You will make a breastplate of judgment of woven design. You will then make the ephod with threads composed zahav, techelet, argaman, v'tolaat, gold, turquoise, wool, purple, scarlet, and intertwined linen. It must be square and folded over a certain span. You will then set it with gems mounted in gold settings. Beautiful materials, jewels, lots of gold here. There will be 4 rows of gems. The first row must compose a carnelian, an emerald, a topaz. Second row, garnet, sapphire, diamond, and we move on and on and on. The gems, of course, now we're talking about the Shvatim, the 12 tribes of Israel, will bear the names of Israel's sons, all 12 by name. Each one's name will be engraved on a signet ring for all 12 tribes. The people that Moshe had carefully and lovingly led through the desert and through all of the challenges that ensued will now be represented on Aaron's person, not on Moshe's. And so, the details of the pageantry of the priestly garments and accessories continue. At Aharon, at banav takriv. Again, takriv. You should bring them close. And we know that the loaded message of that shoresh, kuf, resh, vet, takriv, korban, sacrifices, getting as close as we can to God. You will bring them el patach ha'ohed, to the opening of the ohel moed, to the tent of meeting, and immerse them in water. You will take the vestments and you will dress Aharon. You will place the turban on his head. You will take the anointing oil. Moshe here is the dress maker, the garment guy. He is invested with putting the vestments on Aharon. Throughout the end of the Parsha, Moshe is to create, to make, to place, while Aharon is to perform all of the elements of the scripted pageantry. Moshe is in charge of the particulars, but Aharon gets to achieve the rapture, so to speak. How do we reconcile this? How did Moshe? We learn as follows in the Midrash. All 7 days while Moshe was at the burning bush, God urged him, "Go on my mission." And Moshe answers, "Send by the hand of someone else." As we read in chapter 4, verse 13, Vayomer bi Adoni shalach na biyad tishlach. Send your message with the one with whom you will send. Vayichar af Hashem. This is back in the very beginning of Shemot. And God is angry by Moshe, with Moshe. Vayomer halo Aharon achicha halevi yadati ki diber yadaberahu v'gam hinehu yotze likrotecha v'recha v'samach b'libo. Isn't Aaron your brother, the Levite, there? I know that he will speak for you. He's coming toward you. And when he sees you, v'samach b'libo, he will rejoice. This was repeated every day according to the Midrash. Then God said to Moshe, "I'm telling you, go. And you tell me, send me by the hand of someone else. As you live tomorrow, I will pay you back." The Mishkan is constructed. You will expect to be the high priest, and I will tell you, you call Aharon to be appointed the Kohen HaGadol. He will be the one that I will send as you asked me at the burning bush. So here we are in God's time, outside and around the limitations of the human condition. When we look at this from God's perspective, God knows all too well that the light might have been just too bright for Moshe. As Moshe showed us at the burning bush in Parak Gimel in chapter 3, the light indeed was too bright. So within that context, while we acknowledge Moshe's humility, is it not possible that something else is happening here? We read in chapter 3, Moshe was pasturing the flocks of Yitro, Moshe Yero El son Yitro, Chotno, his father-in-law, the chief of Midian, and he led the flocks after the free pasture land. And he came to the mountain to God, to Horeb. An angel appears to him in a flame from the fire, and behold, the bush is not burning. Vayar v'hinei hasna ba'er ba'esh v'hasna enenu uchal. It's not eaten by the fire. Moshe says, Asurana v'areh et hamareh hagadol hazeh madua lo yim'ar hasana. I need to turn and see what's going on. Why isn't this bush burning? Vayar Hashem kisar lerot. He saw that Moshe turned around, and God calls out from the middle of the bush, Vayomer Moshe, Moshe, Vayomer Hineni. He says, Moshe, Moshe, and he says, here I am. Vayomer, Al Tik Rav. Don't come closer. Take your shoes off. Because the land on which you stand is sanctified land. So we have two different possibilities at this point. One extolling Moshe's humility, and the other perhaps his own reluctance to enter the rapture, so to speak. Both can be clearly true. The Midrash and our rabbis do try to reconcile them, explaining Moshe's disappointment may be present, but this should not have been a surprise. In terms of any anger or loss, it is clear that Aharon, the idyllic brother, is by Moshe's side from the beginning. He becomes Moshe's voice by God's assignment. They are partners. But even in a partnership, there can be disappointment and misunderstandings. As we return to our Midrash, Rabbi Yossi explains to Rabbi Yoshua ben Korba that originally it was Aharon who was supposed to be the Levite and Moshe the Kohen. But due to God's anger and disappointment and the notion that Rabbi Yoshua of Korba teaches that every burning anger in the Torah leaves a trace, here the roles are reversed. Moshe and his sons will be the Levites, Aharon and his sons the Kohanim. Perhaps this is another case of roles that were initially indicated, as we saw in the sons of Yaakov and others in the previous generations in Breshit. And they are not necessarily the roles into which individuals grow and show themselves to be more fitted to fill. In a lot of areas of my work, I deal with how people are born and how they become what they become as they get older. When you think of the dreams that one has of a baby and then what that child grows to be, many of us find ourselves in a very different lane than we were in our expectations. But each one goes on their journey, has their own set of experiences, and we have to honor that. And maybe that's a little bit of what's going on here. Maybe Aharon and Moshe each grow up through their own experiences to be different. Maybe that's one of the lessons we learn from them. And when those roles are reversed, each one being very honorable, there can still be disappointment if one expected to take the other role. Powerful experiences can indeed take one to a state of rapture. Pageantry can indeed blind. But when we address the particulars of what must be done and the purpose of why we do it, we are brought back to our human context. We are grounded, if you will. Here we have an important lesson for all of us, one exhibited by the actions, the disappointment, and perhaps, according to the Midrash, the reassignment of Moshe Rabbeinu. May we all continue to strive for the beauty and satisfaction of so much in our lives, but not be blinded by the pageantry that can lead to rapture and remove us from our attended and assigned and acquired reality. Shabbat Shalom.